Blah, blah, blah. Long story short, trying to do Chewbacca to a camera with no friends around to laugh at me.
Enough, stop.
I didn't know it was over. I was in my own world. I was feeling it. I was feeling it.
Up to that point, it was martial arts.
Oh, really?
I went to Taiwan and studied with Shaolin monks when I was 13, and the goal was to go to the Olympics. And right around age 15 or 16, I was doing really, really well with it.
Mm-hmm.
And my dad and I were sparring in class, and he got me with a kick that devastated everything. I landed really badly and blew out my lower back.
Oh.
And the doctors were like, you have to stop for at least 6 months. You can't do any kicks because you'll just keep slipping the disc out. You've got to let it heal. And so what I could do was I could sit on my brother's drum kit and play. And I mean, within weeks, it was on. I was like, this is it. If I can't do martial arts right now, then, and I did the same thing I did with martial arts. That was it. I just shut off from everything. And my dad built me a drum room just so that they didn't have to hear me 6 hours a day.
That's so bad that you probably ruined your career.
Right? Oh no, he was devastated. So my dad comes up to about here on me. I'm adopted, and I'm a giant in my whole family. Everybody's tiny, and I was never into any sports except martial arts. And my dad is addicted to sports. Like, he was sending me to basketball camp and tennis camp and really on it. And I was just like, I hate all of this. It just I didn't connect with it. And it was a real bummer. And when I got into martial arts as a kid, my dad kind of was like, hey, it's something we could do together. But I was big. I was this tall at age 13 and really skinny and fast. And I just, for first couple years, I just creamed my dad every time. He couldn't get close.
Oh, geez.
Because he was a hands guy and he was tiny, and I just kept kicking him in the face every time he tried to get close. And it would frustrate him because he was so good at all these sports, and I was horrible. And then all of a sudden it flipped. But he was a smart fighter. And after years of him and I sparring, he learned all my signature moves that I would use to win tournaments. And one day I went to do this, it's a hook kick over his head, and then I usually would come back. When the person tries to duck it, I'd come back and get him with the foot.
Yeah.
Well, he dropped down on his back while my leg's up in the air, and he hit me right in the crotch.
Oh.
And I went up, and I came down and landed badly. I was wearing a cup, so I didn't get hurt there, but that's how I had a black and blue ring, though. Woo-hoo-hoo! And then I started playing drums. I started building drums while I was in high school, and then I went and used that to parlay into a job in Mississippi working for PV Electronics, training people how to build drums at age 19.
Wow.
And the only reason I did that was so I could get into the business, because I didn't know what to do from a little town of 1,200 people in Michigan. I'm like, and I had scholarship offers, and I turned them all down, which pissed my parents off. Because I had offered free rides at a lot of schools, and somebody in the music business told me not to do it. They go, no, go move to LA. Move to LA, get into the business, intern, learn what it's really like. And I did exactly that. And actually now, my biggest gigs that I do every year, I'm the house drummer for pretty much all Dick Clark shows. It's American Music Awards, the Academy of Country Music Awards, Billboard, all the award shows except for the Grammys, which is the biggest one, but we don't do that one. And the guy who gave me the advice to move to California is the guy who I do all those shows for now.
Wow.
Yeah. His name's Edgar Struble. He's from my hometown. He was the one guy who made it out and made it big, and he since a little kid always kind of pointed me in which direction to go. And then after I had been a professional drummer for probably almost 10 years, he was a Nashville guy, and he moved out to LA. He's like, I just got hired to do all these shows, and I need a band. And so I put the whole band together for the show, and we've been doing them for like 12 years now. Yes! Greatest thing, easiest job in the world.
Crashing your
Yeah! Oh!
Are you sitting on my jacket?
I don't know. Am I sitting on your jacket? No, I'm not.
I gotta find my jacket. It's cold outside.
Oh,
peace. All right.
Giving you my whole life story. Oh my gosh.
So where did you get the name Dogboy?
Dogboy, I was working for PV Electronics in Mississippi, and I didn't know anybody. And there was the guy who was head of design at PV, who was a very hippie kind of dude. Decided to, he was going to let me rent his room. And he was an amazing guitar player. I was 19. And he's like, I'm going to take you out. I'm going to take you out into town. We're going to go to the Hungry Heifer. That was the name of the one blues bar. No joke. And they had a picture of like a boar. And I had no idea what I was getting myself into. I was 19. I'd always played in bars and in clubs since I was 16, even though I wasn't old enough, but I every single weekend did it. And I was kind of flamboyant, and I didn't know Mississippi that well. So I get there, he's like, I'm going to take you out, so get ready. And I put on like a full-on multicolored disco shirt with like almost parachute pants on, and then I greased my hair or put a ton of gel in it, so much that it got hard and looked like plastic, and I used to have a big space between my teeth. And we're getting ready to go out, and he had MTV on. There was a show called Liquid Television, and there was a character on the show called Dogboy who had a fake helmet of plastic hair, big buck teeth with the space in between. And he just looked at me and wearing like the same shirt I was. And he's like, Dogboy, you're Dogboy. That's from now on, you're Dogboy. And he was probably on some herbal stuff at that time. And so he took me out and I played that night with the bands. And he just started introducing me to everybody as Dogboy. And then that next Monday I started work. I never, ever used my name at the company. It would be, it's 2,000 employees, and over the PA it would be Dogboy, line 2. And it just stuck. And then when I moved to LA, my name's Brian Burwell, and Brian's a common name, and I was trying to figure out how to, I'd meet people playing in Hollywood, hi Brian, and nobody would remember it. So I just was like, you know what, I'm going to try Dogboy, and it worked. People would remember it, so I started using it all the time, and it would happen. I'd meet people, and I'd go, hi, I'm Brian Burwell. And they go, oh, but people call me Dogboy. And they go, oh, I've heard you, It worked, so I used it. Now I'm in my 40s, and it's still, so most people know me, although I don't use it as much anymore, but it is what it is. Woo, that's the Dogboy story.
Can you talk about some of the work you've done, like some of the bands you've played with?
Yeah, let's see. I'll try to do it quick from when my first, like, when everything happened, and by the way, I didn't plan on becoming a session drummer. I didn't think I was good enough. I didn't know, and I didn't know the business. So I'm out here, and I get hired to start doing demo sessions for a guitar player. And it ended up, was the greatest thing in the world. I ended up working almost every day of the week recording for him. And his manager, and this is back in 96 maybe, he'd pay me $8 an hour for a full day, like I worked for a company, but all I do is go to the studio and just hang out. And I'd get paid for it. And then anytime this guitar player, songwriter had an idea, I'd go in the room and I'd record for him. And that's how I learned how to record. And then he started introducing me to everybody. He's like, you got it. And I started getting hired at other studios. And then one of the engineers brought in a guy and a lot of times they don't tell me this, and I'm glad because then I don't get nervous. It's just somebody watching. And there's this engineer named Moana. And I come out and they go, we're going to use on some stuff a bunch of your drum loops, like pre-recorded things that I had done. And they go, but we'd like you to come in and record this one song live. And I'm like, well, who's it for? And they're like, Michael Bolton. And who's, sold like 100 million records. And we're doing it at Diane, I think it was Diane Warren's studio, and it's her song, and she's the biggest female songwriter of all time. And the producer is a guy named Guy Roche, who's now done like Christina Aguilera and all this stuff. And I freaked out. Went in and found out that I was the third drummer that they had brought in to play on this song. And one of them was one of my favorite drummers of all time. And I guess Michael just didn't like it. So they told me, said, you'll get paid, but you might not make the record. It could be finicky. And it ended up being the single, and I was on it. And that was the beginning. And then I could start using that. And then just about every 80s band there was, every 80s hair band, I either ended up playing with them or recording with them. The group called Rat, the lead singer, Stephen Piercy, I did most of his solo stuff. There's some good stories there because he was a wreck at that time. He's doing better now. Group called Candlebox, toured with them for about a year. It was really the singer's solo band. And then I left that group to go play with a group called Nelson, who was really big in the early 90s. Twins with long blonde hair. They were the #1 band on MTV. After the Rain. And what I love about that is I saw them in concert when I was in high school, and their drummer was I worshipped him. I had his drum video, learned everything on his drum video, and then I ended up, like 10 years later, I replaced him and became friends with him. But that was amazing. I just couldn't believe it. Mitchell Musso from the Hannah Montana show, toured with him for about a year. Those were some of the biggest shows that I ever done. Quick story, played. We were introduced in Texas at the American Airlines Center, where I think it's the Dallas Mavericks play. And George W. Bush introduced us, which was a trip. I got to meet a president.
Wow.
And it was like 25,000 screaming kids. And I just knew, I'm going, you know what? They're all so into this Mitchell Musso. I bet you the instant I end the last song, I could walk out in the audience and nobody would even know. And that's exactly what happened. It was like, boom! I hit, and I stood up. I walked off the back of the stage and walked around and walked right into the audience. The only people who recognized me were parents.
Yeah.
They would come up and go, hey, you were the drummer. Good job. But none of the kids. It was just, I'm up there for an hour playing, and nobody cares. Let's see, who else? Drake Bell from the TV show Drake and Josh. Oh, man, there's so many. Bonnie McKee, which a lot of people don't know her. They know her songs. Huge songwriter. She wrote, I think, 2 or 3 of the #1 Katy Perry songs. They were best friends.
Okay.
She usually has crazy hair, and she has some songs now that are out. But I had played for her for I did a lot of recording for her. And there's so many people that recorded with or played with. Right now, the guitar player who's in Bon Jovi, he's their lead guitar player. We were in a band for 6 years called Powder, which is like a Cirque du Soleil
Oh, sweet.
burlesque. We had his ex-wife was the lead singer, and she was the most amazing aerialist. As a matter of fact, and this is not making stuff. Pink stole our complete show.
That's when you said that. When you said
Okay.
that,
She
I
completely,
immediately thought
like,
of her.
by the way, her main people that choreographed were the people that were in our show. She took them. They're good friends, and we don't mind.
Wow.
We're all too old
Do you-
anyways.
Do you have any videos of it? Like, of you guys
Of
performing?
powder?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got some. Most of it I've just found online because I never videoed any.
Okay, I'll look
There's
it up
some
and I'll...
stuff. What is it? City Walk, Universal City
Yeah.
Walk.
Okay.
But we don't have whoever videoed. We don't have the aerial stuff because it was an outdoor show.
Yeah.
It was too hard to do rigging, and because there were so many people. But there is a drum solo, and I usually wore black and white stripes and black and white pantyhose over my head, and then I would do a small drum solo, and then I would come out and break dance and do a nunchuck routine and the splits. Yeah, and you know what? It ended up. That was never my plan. It was the girls in the show needed an extra minute of time to do a set change after they did stuff and catch their breath, and during my drum solo. So usually I do 2 minutes of drum solo, and they're like, "We need 1 more minute." I'm like, "Dude, I can do 20 minutes of drum solo." And our guitar player, who's now in Bon Jovi, goes, "I saw you break that." Like messing around. He's like, "You're gonna do that in the second half of your drum solo," and I was just like, "Are you kidding me? No!" And it ended up being like, the best thing for my career because everybody flipped out. I didn't, and I do it more as I'm not good at any of it. I was just doing it for like a joke. And actually, a lot of times I might fall over. I'd hit myself with the nunchucks, use padded ones, and I've completely knocked myself over. And it wasn't a joke. It was like,
Oh, gosh.
ouch. And people just thought I was joking around. But it ended up, we would get all these, because Phil, the guitar player who's in the band, was the #1 session guitar player. And he played on every hit that you've heard that's come out of California. So huge artists would come to our show all the time. And it was kind of frustrating. I got so many compliments on my dancing. And I'm like, "What about the drumming?
I know.
What about the drumming?" And they're like, "Yeah, we know you're good at that, but the dance." I mean, huge drummers, Tommy Lee, would come out to the shows, and he just got the biggest kick out of it. And that's how I got to know him and a lot of these people. And it was a blast. It was a good. We were the #1 drawing unsigned band in Los Angeles. We could sell out we play usually twice or once every 2 months at what was the Key Club, and we'd sell it out in advance every time, and it was awesome. Or the House of Blues, and it was so great. And one time we went. Phil, the guitar player, had played on Chris Daughtry's record, and Chris Daughtry was going to do a private secret show at the Viper Room, and he asked us to open for him, which was a huge mistake because he had just gotten his new band together. They'd just done the record, which was all session players, and then he has us come and open for him, and we were all the top session guys, and it's hard to compete with that no matter how good you really are, because we've been doing it forever. We came out, and Daughtry was sick that night. We came out and just destroyed the room. Woo! All right! And then he had to get up and play after us, and I just know that was... And all the guys in his band were brand new and nervous. It was their first... It was their test. And I know that was very intimidating.
Nobody follows a killer.
Yeah. And I do like that. I like going into bars and trying to get myself to sit in with the band without ever letting them know that I play drums professionally. Like just saying, "Can I, you mind if I sit in?" God, yeah, it's so much fun.
Thank you for the interview.
You're welcome.